I don't know, we'll do it the way we always do it, I guess. Start off by doing a little dance. That's how we know we're ready to do this thing. Tassadar knows. He knows what to do. Alright, Church of Tassadar in full effect. We'll go ahead and start that in 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, John here with another scrub guide, the long-awaited guide to Tassadar. Anybody who knows my background on this game knows that I have been a fan of Tassadar since the very beginning. He has been kind of my go-to hero. I like to make a lot of jokes. I am a full-fledged member of the Church of Tassadar, and we're going to take a look at why. Now, if you've watched any of the other videos that I've done, Thrall and Sylvanas, typically what I do in these is I show you the build I most often use. With Tassadar, there is no build I most often use. He is a very versatile hero, and the way I use him is going to vary depending on the group composition, you know, what's going on, what I feel like we need. He's kind of a reactive hero, so I can't go through and tell you, okay, this is the best talent to take, because it's not always going to be universally true. As a result, this video is going to be a little bit longer, because we're going to actually take a little bit more time to examine the abilities, when you want to use them, things like that. So let's go ahead and go over his general abilities right out of the gate, starting with his trait Oracle, which does cost mana, and it greatly increases your vision radius and allows you to detect enemy heroes, last for 5 seconds. Let me show you what that does. We go over here. This is about where you would typically start a match right after the gates open, kind of hovering in between your towers and the enemy towers. Now, why this is a cool ability is because, as you will see, once I hit D, I get a reveal of where everybody is. It's a nice way to kind of keep an eye on things. Also, tactically, if we were in a match with a Nova, that will reveal Nova on the map. So it's a good way to deal with stealth characters. It'll reveal people hiding in bushes. It's a really good way to find where you need to find somebody, where they're sneaking up, and just grant additional visibility. If you're guarding something that, you know, like a tribute, it's a good way to guard a tribute. Now is a perfect time to show that ability, seeing as I'm hanging out talking instead of fighting. So, Tassadar's Q ability is Plasma Shield. 60 mana, it gives an ally a shield that absorbs 240 damage over 8 seconds. So, as you can see, if somebody's getting hit, we can shield them. That little guy's got a shield, he's now going to last a little bit longer. You can shield yourself, you can shield minions, you can shield towers. If I wanted to shield this gate and say, hey guys, don't attack the gate, well, I accidentally hit an elf here, but you can do that too. It is a very versatile ability, one that you will use a lot. His primary attack comes from this ability, Psionic Storm, costs 65 mana, deals 50 damage per second to enemies in the target area for 3 seconds. So let's look at that. As you can see, it is hitting everybody, which is a really cool thing, because it's a nice little AoE. It's a good way to clear creep waves, because I will tell you, when they clump up in their normal manner, it is just big enough to hit every single one in the wave. So when done correctly, you can make sure you're doing damage to all creeps at all times. That's going to be your primary damage. Every other one of his abilities is fairly passive, except for his ult, but we will get into that in a moment. His E ability is his escape, and it is definitely one of the best escapes in the game. Dimensional Shift costs 75 mana. You become invulnerable and fully invisible for 1.5 seconds. What this means is if you find yourself in trouble, you're behind enemy lines, you need to get out of there, you hit that, not only can they no longer see you to track you, but they can't hit you. So even if they're throwing something at you, it's not going to do anything. Also, most recently added hero at the time of this, Kael'thas, he has a pretty nasty heroic called Pyroblast. Tassadar is one of the few heroes that can actually avoid Pyroblast by using Dimensional Shift right as it's coming towards you. So you can actually escape that, whereas most heroes cannot. So that's kind of the core abilities. We'll take a look at ultimates when we get to that talent, but let's go ahead and take a look at the early talents that you'll be taking in the game. So at level 1, there's a couple that I really like, and there's some I don't like. The first thing you need to ask yourself is take a look at your comp and decide, okay, what's my best role? In this particular case, it's me and Malfurion, who is definitely a healer. He's another support. So you don't need Tassadar being a Healy support when you've got Malfurion hanging out in the crowd. So in this case, I would actually make him, you know, kind of a ranged attacker. He's not going to be as good as an assassin, but he can definitely do some damage. And the easiest way to do that, or the most efficient way to do that, I should say, is to pick Overload, which increases the range. So as you can see, when I hit W, that's about as far as Tassadar can go. It's got a pretty good range. If you extend that even further, you can actually cast Overload over the top of walls without being targeted by the tower. Some other good talents that you might want to consider, if you're going to be casting a lot, Conjurer's Pursuit isn't a bad way to go, but keep in mind it does require you to get health globes. That can be very hard to do, especially if you're in a lane by yourself. Tassadar's a bit squishy, he's a support. He's not supposed to be rushing in and grabbing globes like that. He's supposed to kind of be hanging back. But if you feel confident enough, that's a good way to make mana very trivial at the end of the game. Cyan Fusion, which returns mana for each target initially hit, is not a terrible talent, but even if you hit a ton of enemies, even if that, it's still not going to refund the cost of the spell to do it. So it makes the spell cheaper, but it doesn't remove the full mana cost. You're not going to be able to use it to regain mana, you're just going to use it as a way to slow mana. And Minion Bulwark, which makes minions and mercenaries more powerful, is probably the talent I would say most likely you're not going to want to pick. Creeps and stuff exist to die. Buffing them is not a huge boost in this game at this particular point. So we're going to go ahead and go with Overload to increase the range. Now take a look at how far away... Oop, it's hard to do when you've got a tooltip in the way. Look at how far I can cast this from. That's a good way to do a lot of damage without having to put yourself in the line of fire. So I can stay way back, do my attacks, hang back here, stay in a safe spot, and keep attacking.
Choose a talent.
Alright, next up, let's go ahead and look at these. So for your level 4 talents, once again, if you're going support, if you're there to heal, you may want to consider Healing Ward. Now they've recently done some changes to Healing Ward, where it can now be targeted by AoE attacks, which makes it very easy to kill. That said, Tassadar doesn't really have a good way to heal people. So if you are going to try and do healing for your team, that's about the best option you've got. But there is no scenario where Tassadar is really going to be a good choice for healing. It's just not what he does. He prevents damage. He doesn't return health. Another way that you can kind of do a little bit of healing is to take Leeching Plasma. And that is while Plasma Shield is active, 20% of the target's basic attack damage against the target, or against the primary target, is returned as health. Basically what that means is if I shield good old Malfurion here and he starts taking damage, he's going to be getting healed up at the same time, which is pretty nice. Reinforced Structure is going to make the shield better if you're casting it on towers and things like that. Not a bad way to go if you're in a match where you have to play very heavily defensively, but by the time you're level 4 you probably aren't sure that that's going to be the case. So it's not necessarily in a place where you're going to pick it or be likely to pick it. Promote, give minion health and damage. Again, it's another big boost to minions. You can go that path, but again, it's just not a great one. And Mental Acuity reduces the cooldown of Oracle. Oracle is a great ability, but it's not something that you're going to constantly need. So my choice here would be Leeching Plasma. For this particular damaging build, where I'm more likely to be in there doing damage, again, Healing Ward would probably be my second choice at this point. So we'll go ahead and take that.
Choose a talent.
Alright, let's look at level 7 options. So, start off with Kala's Embrace. If Plasma Shield expires, 50% of the shield remains indefinitely. This effect does not stack. So if I were to shield Malfurion and he's not getting hit, he gets to keep 50% of that shield, going forward until it's gone. Which is pretty handy if you have a tendency to shield somebody and they walk away. Static Charge. Enemies damaged by Psionic Storm are marked with Static Charge. Your basic attacks consume the Static Charge and deal 56 damage. So basically, it is a way to do extra damage using your Psionic Storm ability. Deep Shift increases the duration of your Dimensional Shift, and Call Down Mule, which repairs structures, rearms them, and heals them. So again, we've got a lot of really interesting options here. In the case of this build for Tassadar, where I'm wanting to be a little more damagey, I would be inclined to take Static Charge. In fact, that's the talent I'm going to take here in a minute. Doing more damage when you're trying to damage deal is important, so I would say that's the most important ability. If you are playing a support Tassadar, probably your most likely talents is going to be either Kala's Embrace or Call Down Mule. Both are very circumstantial uses, but can be very good. The reason Kala's Embrace isn't great is because typically, if I shield Malfurion here, and he gets damaged, they usually, if they're focusing on him, which they would be, they will usually take the shield down well before the shield would expire. And so the fact that it would keep 50% of its ability or charge isn't a big deal. I usually will shield when a hero's in trouble, not being proactive with it of just, let's give that guy a shield for reasons. So it's a little bit harder to justify that one. The Mule is really great, but again, it's really only good if they're making a big push and they're doing things you don't want them to be doing anyway. None of these talents are particularly bad. They're just all very circumstantial depending on how you play. So we're going to go ahead and take Static Charge.
I concur.
Choose a talent.
Alright, the fun one. Tassadar has two fantastic ultimate abilities that could not be more different. Let's start with Archon. Archon transforms you into an Archon, gaining a 600-point shield, causing basic attacks to deal 184 damage, and splash for 92 additional damage, and lasts for 12 seconds. It basically turns you into a slightly tanky damage dealer at that point, which is pretty cool. Force Wall. Create a wall that blocks all units from moving through it for 2.5 seconds. Now, on the surface, Archon seems like the obvious talent. Here's something that's going to give you a little more defense, it's going to turn you into a beefy tank, it's going to do a lot of damage. That sounds great. And it kinda is. For a while, everybody just picked Archon. I'm a big fan of Force Wall, but it has its time and place. So let me tell you when you pick Force Wall. You pick Force Wall if you are working with a team who is very coordinated and very good at working with you. You will get more takedowns with Force Wall with a coordinated team than you will with Archon. Because what you will do is, in this case, if we started hitting Arthas and we had our whole team hitting him and he started to retreat because his health was getting low, we would throw up a Force Wall blocking him, and that extra couple of seconds means a guaranteed kill as opposed to letting him get away. In addition, let's say the team was coming in and we're fighting Arthas and we're not ready to take on the team, I can block their team and prevent them from coming in until Arthas is dead, and that's one less person we have to worry about in a team fight. There's all sorts of uses. Likewise, if he's chasing me, I can escape, throw up Force Wall to prevent myself from getting there. If you have a boss that's going for the core and you want to slow it down, you can use Force Wall to slow mercenaries and bosses and things like that. It is super useful. But again, it relies on you using it well, because you can mess it up and it will make people mad. Sometimes you can block somebody from getting a kill. And the other downside is if you're not with a coordinated team, all you've done is lock them in with you as Tassadar, and you don't do nearly enough damage to take advantage of it. So, in this case, with AI-controlled characters and whatnot, we're taking Archon. But I want you to know, Force Wall is viable, and it's a lot of fun.
Choose a talent.
Before we take our next talent, let's look at Archon, because it is a pretty cool-looking ultimate, and hey, why not? So, you'll see, turn into a big, nasty, glowy version of Tassadar. You can see I'm doing a lot more damage to him, making Arthas run away. Hey, wish I had a Force Wall, I could have blocked him. That's kind of what I'm talking about. But, yeah, that's Archon. So, let's look at level 13. So, level 13 abilities is, again, another one where it goes in a ton of different directions. Distortion Beam turns your basic attacks into a solid channeled beam. It slows enemies by 20%, for 1.5 seconds. Managing the speed and movement of your enemies is super important in this game. That's what makes Force Wall such a good talent, is being able to control where they go and how fast they go. A slow is nice, but let's look at the other talents first. I'm not even going to be able to pronounce this word, so thanks, Blizzard, for picking words that even I don't know. We'll say prescience. I think I said that right. Prescience, basically what it does is when your health gets low enough, it will automatically activate the dimensional shift ability for you. It's a very nice talent for people who are maybe brand new with Tassadar. If you are familiar enough with him to catch your health going low, you should have enough time to press E to get away when things get serious. If you don't trust yourself well enough, it's a decent talent. It'll save your life, it'll keep you in the game. But, again, you really should be able to take care of this part on your own, so using a talent for it is a little silly. Scryer, so basically what it does is it makes your Oracle duration longer, increases your movement speed. It's kinda cool, but Tassadar isn't a get into the thick of it guy. Tassadar's a hang back guy. It's better to affect your enemy's movement than Tassadar's movement, or affect your allies' movement than Tassadar's movement. Him getting up into the thick of things faster doesn't do a ton of good. So, it's a decent talent, it's not great. Spell Shield, upon taking ability damage, reduce that damage and further ability damage by 50% for 2 seconds, can only trigger once every 30 seconds. This is a very good survival talent. I mean, whether you hang back a ways or not, people are going to target Tassadar, people are going to try and take him down. Having an ability that's going to keep you up and able to support your allies a bit is really good. This is actually one of my favorite abilities to take. I think it's pretty strong. The other one that's really good is Shrink Ray. Activate to reduce an enemy hero's damage by 50% and movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. So as you can see, this slows them more, it slows them for longer, and it reduces their damage.
Of course.
So as cool as Distortion Beam is, and it's cool, because see these little orbs that Tassadar throws? Turns into a cool beam. It's really cool looking. It's not as good as Shrink Ray. Now, this does have a 60-second cooldown, whereas this is something that just replaces his main attack. You can use this more, but this is more effective. I'm going to go ahead and do Spell Shield this time, but I would say Shrink Ray, Spell Shield are going to be your go-to. These three will be your situational.
Choose a talent.
Alright, level 16. This will be your favorite level as Tassadar. It is where you unlock some of the coolest abilities for him. So let's take a look at what he gets. First of all, evasive shielding. The target of your plasma shield also gains 25% movement speed for 4 seconds. That's huge. If your enemy, or if your team is trying to chase down an enemy, and you shield them, they're going to move faster and catch him, and it's going to be far more likely that they're able to take him down. Plus, the added shield means that if the enemy's allies are coming in, he's got a little health boost to kind of protect him so he can get back once that takedown has happened. It's a pretty good ability, but it's probably my third choice on this list. Resonation. Psionic Storm targets are slowed by 25% for 1 second. Again, another slow. It's not as effective as some of the other slows, and that's why I think this is probably the weakest talent at this level. It's just not as good. The slow will keep them in it longer, which potentially means you're going to get another hit on them. But just below it, let's take a look at the next one because that's even better. Second Strike. After casting Psionic Storm, you may cast Psionic Storm again for free within 3 seconds. This effect does not stack. For a damage-dealing Tassadar, this is the go-to choice. This is where you stop doing kind of okay damage and start doing serious damage. You can get in there with this ability, and I'll show you once I pick it, and you can take out entire sections of minion waves. It's fantastic. The other ability you can go with is Dimensional Warp. Walled Dimensional Shifted, you gain 50% movement speed and heal for 680 health. This is my second favorite choice. It used to be what I would pick every single time, but the reality is it's just not that good when you're trying to be a damage dealer Tassadar. So basically this is a really good self-heal. And like I said, if you're a support Tassadar, you want to stay in the fight as long as possible. So a way to quickly heal yourself, get out of combat, and back up, get healed, and then get back in, that's a super useful talent. Only consider it if you're playing support. For damage though, Second Strike is the way to go. So let's do that, and let me show you what Second Strike looks like. First, let's see if we can chase off Arthas here. So this is what Second Strike ultimately looks like. I get to lay down 2 of these things. If you lay them down correctly, they can run into them, they can get hit by double. You saw how quick it cleared out that wave. Let's push them back to the gate. So if the gate was still there, you can lay damage down on both of them. When the waves come through, you can hit them both. You do some serious damage with that ability. It is a great damage dealing ability.
Choose a talent.
Alright, final set of talents here for Mr. Tassadar. So, first you have Twilight Archon, which increases your shield, damage, and basic attack. It basically makes Archon more powerful, which if you saw me use it earlier, it kind of needs. It feels a little weak. He still feels like a weak damage dealer, a strong version of a weak damage dealer. So upping that is pretty good. Storm Shield is a great ability. It basically gives you and your allies a shield of 20% of their max health for 3 seconds. If you're all in on the core and you're having a big fight right at the core, activating this can keep your whole team alive and give you a chance to wipe everybody else. It's a very powerful shield and a very good choice. Rewind resets the cooldowns of your basic abilities. Now, Tassadar's abilities do not have an insane cooldown, but they do have a decent one. It's not a terrible thing to do if you're trying to get more damage and things like that. I just don't think it's the best choice in talents for him. So, also, if we had chosen Force Barrier, this one I like and I don't. So, Basically, it increases the wall range, the range with which you can cast it, and it also increases the duration. Now, sometimes the wall lasts a little longer than you would like it to. Sometimes you feel like you wish it could last a little bit longer. It's all very situational, but the nicest part about this is that it increases the range. The biggest, most difficult thing about using the wall with Tassadar is the limited range on the wall. You have to get... you know what, when we're done, I'll take the wall. I'll show you exactly what I mean. We'll get back to it. So, in this case, I'm going to go ahead, we'll buff the Archon ability. We'll take that. Let's go ahead and win this fight here and see how we do.
It shall be done.
Chase off Arthas here. As soon as we clear this, we'll go ahead and reset.
Glorious.
It's weird. I've never seen them stay up. Alright. So let's refresh the forts. Let's reset the whole level. Alright. Let's real quick level up to max. We'll pretend, well, we'll level up to 10, and then I'll show you what we're talking about with the wall. I'll show you a quick version of kind of a support build. So we can go with that. We can go with that. Go with that. That. Okay. So let me show you what I mean by the force wall's range is limited. As you can see, we can get pretty far out there with this psionic storm. The wall has an even shorter distance. What that means, if we're trying to box in Arthas, we actually have to get pretty close to be able to position the wall correctly. It does take the wall a second to pop up, as you can see. If he is over halfway through it by the time it pops up, he will be trapped on the opposite side, and you will trap your team behind it and make your team very angry. So the range is an issue with the wall. The range is a serious problem. Let's see if we can get Arthas to try and run again. We'll see if we can get a wall on him. See, that's how you wall. But again, you can also see why it's so important to have a good team with you. Tassadar isn't going to be the person to take them down. You need both team members going after him at the same time, or however many it is, in order to use it. Now, let's take a look at it at level 20, all maxed out. And I'll show you the range on that here. Okay. So now, we can use our wall a little bit better. That's a decent range. That's a decent distance to have to use the wall. So it feels a lot better. Also, you'll note how short the cooldown is. The wall is super useful in that regard because you keep getting to use it. So, it's very, 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 very handy in that regard. It lasts a lot longer. It's just, it makes the talent so much more useful. Gives you plenty of additional options on what to do with it. Look at that. Look at how mad we've made that little Arthas. So that's how you use Force Wall, generally speaking. And that's Tassadar. Again, I can't tell you exactly what the right build is because it's going to be very situational. See how you're doing in the match, see who you're fighting against, see what kind of role you want to play as Tassadar, and let that be the deciding factor on what talents you pick. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Tassadar. He's one of my favorite heroes. He is the leader of the Church of Tassadar. He's a very good choice. So we'll close on a dance, and I'll say thank you for watching.